going to go back to 1959 with just kind of a fun movie. And I'm going to let film study professor Joe Fortunato take it from there. But it's fun as we turn back the clock, and let's bring him in, Joe Fortunato, as we go to film school. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Ray. Good morning, everybody. And, it's been a minute since we've done an older film, so we're going back to 1959 for one of the greatest comedies ever, Some Like It Hot, celebrating its 65th anniversary this year. It was released March 19th, 1959. It was directed by the great Billy Wilder, written by Billy Wilder and I.A.L. Diamond. It stars, of course, Marilyn Monroe, Tony Curtis, and Jack Lemmon. It had 6 Oscar nominations, but only 1 win for Best Costume. And it was, for those who don't know, because it is an older film, it's about 2 male musicians played by Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon. They witness a mob hit, and then they have to flee the States with an all-female band disguised as women. And then, of course, hilarity ensues. So it's kind of an early, precursor to Bosom Buddies, if you will. It's a much-lauded film. In 2007, the American Film Institute ranked it as the 22nd greatest movie of all time. It was voted number 1 on the AFI's list of funniest movies of all time. And in 1989, the Library of Congress added it to its National Film Registry. So it's, very well-respected and much loved film. When Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon first put on the female makeup and costumes, they actually walked around the Goldwyn Studios to see if they could, quote-unquote, pass as women. And they, used the mirrors in the public ladies' room to fix their makeup. None of the women complained. They knew they could be convincing as women. And it's kind of funny because for longtime listeners of this show, when we talked about Tootsie last year, Dustin Hoffman did the same thing when he was playing Tootsie. So a long tradition there of those folks. Jack Lemmon actually said that when they saw the first sneak preview, it had a very bad reaction and many audience walkouts. And a lot of the studio personnel and agents were offering advice to Billy Wilder on what scenes to reshoot, add, cut, so on and so forth. And Lemmon asked Wilder what he was going to do, and Billy Wilder said, "Why, nothing. This is a very funny movie, and I believe in it just as it is. Maybe this is the wrong neighborhood. At any rate, I don't panic over one preview. It's a hell of a movie." Of course, they held another preview in the Westwood section of Los Angeles, and the audience stood up and cheered, and of course, they were right all along.
Joe, when you go back to the 1950s, and you mentioned it, and it's a fun movie, but there was cross-dressing in the movie. For that time in that movie, was that controversial at all?
Yeah, it was actually. And in fact, in its original release, the state of Kansas banned the film from being shown, saying that cross-dressing was too disturbing for Kansans. I know the League of Decency had a problem with it. The Catholic Church, they rated it B-, morally objectionable in part or for also. Yeah, it definitely was a bit of an issue. But, of course, it played well for the rest of the country, and it's gone down as a legendary film. One of of course, one of the main stars is Marilyn Monroe, and not to dump on poor Marilyn, but the stories of the difficulty that the cast and crew had with her during the making of this film has almost grown to mythical proportions. And there were one time she had to do 47 takes just to get the line "It's me, sugar," correct, and she was saying "Sugar, it's me," or "It's sugar me." And Billy Wilder had the line written on a blackboard, and then she couldn't get it, so there was another line where she did 40 takes. And Tony Curtis hated that his own performance deteriorated over the course of 30 or more takes to get Marilyn to get her job. And after the shooting was completed, Billy Wilder threw a celebration party at his home, or, in the business, we call it a wrap party, for cast members and friends. And Marilyn wasn't invited. And it kind of crushed her. And she had to have it explained to her that she had cost the production nearly $500,000 with her delays and unprofessional behavior.
Wow. And Edward G. Robinson in this a little bit as a gangster, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole sort of side story of, like I said, they're running from the mob, so to speak. Mm-hmm. One other thing about Marilyn is, she was a star, and she consented to appear, despite her problems, consented to appear in the film only after she was offered 10% of the gross. Some fun, what might have been casting moments. Frank Sinatra missed the opportunity to play Jerry. That was the Jack Lemmon role, when he didn't show up for a lunch date with Billy Wilder. And Anthony Perkins, known for Psycho, of course. This would have been before Psycho, but he auditioned for the Jack Lemmon role. Danny Kaye and Bob Hope were considered for roles. Jerry Lewis was actually offered the role of Jerry/Daphne, but declined because he didn't want to dress in drag. And actually, when Jack Lemmon received an Oscar nomination for the role that Lewis gave up, Jerry Lewis claims he sent him chocolates every year and now regrets that he didn't take the part.
I imagine, Joe, and you mentioned the star was Marilyn Monroe. There was no debate who was getting that role, right? That was Marilyn's part. There was probably zero other casting in regards to that role.
Well, yes and no, because they were looking. Tony Curtis was hired, and then Jack Lemmon was brought on, but the studios kind of wanted a bigger name than Jack Lemmon at the time, and so Jack was sort of on the bubble. But when they hired Marilyn, as you mentioned, being a big star, they go, okay, we have our star. But Billy Wilder had done the 7-Year Itch with her before, and maybe didn't have as many problems as he had on this thing, but he had a raised eyebrow about working with Marilyn again.
There you go. Again, Some Like It Hot, 1959, 65 years ago. This movie hit the big screen. Joe Fortunato takes us to film school, and of course, you can check it out at WAKR.net, WAKR.net. Joe, my friend, thanks for the time again. Look forward to Friday already, my friend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Randy. I'm going to leave you with one more fun fact just to close us out here.
Yeah.
The famous closing line, spoiler alert here, the famous closing line, well, nobody's perfect, was actually never intended to be in the final film. It was apparently going to be replaced once the writers thought of something that they liked better. But it ended up staying, and that line was voted the 48th greatest movie quote of all time by the AFI. So it stays in, and it's a great ending and to a great picture. And again, thank you, and we'll see you all next week.
You got it, Joe Fortunato. He takes us to film school each and every Friday here on the Ray Horner Morning Show at this